What can the flight pattern of geese teach us about the greatness of the Lord's church? Well, our guest this morning is going to tell us all about that in just a sec. Welcome to the show. I'm Daniel Dalp, and this is For Your Sunday Morning Drive. We're the short podcast with the goal of providing some motivation, drive, and encouragement, and helping you recenter your mind on those spiritual things on a hectic Sunday morning. As I said, we do have a special guest on the show today. Joining us this morning is Paul Spurlin. Paul is the Connections Minister at the Piedmont Road Church of Christ in Marietta, Georgia. If you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know that our podcast is brought to you in partnership by the Ministry League network of podcasts. Well, Paul also serves as the president and CEO of Ministry League. Speaking of which, Paul asked me to mention that Ministry League has a new app. It's been redesigned from the ground up and can now be found in all app stores by searching the Ministry Network. Paul also hosts his own podcast and is the co-host of the Coffee Conversations with Les and Paul show. I'll be sure to link to all of this in the show notes of today's episode. I've found Paul to be a great servant of the church, and he's also served our country in the U.S. Navy on the aircraft carrier JFK during Desert Storm and Desert Shield. Paul, thank you for your service in both capacities and for being on the show today. Well, let's go ahead and get it on the road. This is episode 112. Don't fly solo. Let's go to church.
Are we there yet?
One thing I noticed on our way to church each morning, we see these birds flying in the air, these geese. It's interesting how they always seem to be in a perfect arrow as they're in the sky. And I can look at these, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, almost 20 geese. And the leader is pretty strong. What I've noticed is, though, there's rotation of the leader. The front of the group of geese, if he starts to falter or his wings start to fail or he gets tired, it's almost like he's tapped, and they rotate out and someone else takes the lead. And they see to the needs of the one that was in the lead, and they rotate around. They move in a formation. They share the strain. They rotate the lead, and they stay together. One bird helps another bird to keep going. This is not by accident. This is God intended. And it's also what God intends for his people, his church, the family of God. You see, too many people try to live the Christian life like a solo flight. They want Jesus, but they don't want the church. They want strength, but they don't want accountability. They want encouragement, but not vulnerability. They want prayer, but for some reason they just don't want people. God did not design his children to make it in this world alone. This journey is to be with a community, with a village, with a church, with a family of God. Too many folks treat Christian life like a buffet. Take all the things you like, leave all the things you don't. How do you live that way? How do you look forward to eternity that way? I look out this window as we drive into church this morning, and I notice what a beautiful day it is. And it's beautiful to see the nature of God, the power of God working every day in our life, whether we see it or recognize it or not. You see, so often it's not because some folks want isolation, not because they don't love God, but because they're trying to obey him while staying disconnected from God's people. You can't do that. That's why we're on our way to church. We're to be with people. The inspired writer Luke gives us a perfect example of this in Luke 15, verses 4 through 7. Of course, you got 3 of the lost in Luke 15, but 4 through 7 is the sheep. Why does the shepherd leave the 99 to go get the one? I'll give you 2 good reasons. Number 1, he doesn't want anybody to be lost. They don't want anybody to go astray. But number 2, he doesn't want anybody to be alone. Who's going to help that sheep when it's nowhere near the rest of the flock? You see, a Christian isolated from the church becomes easier prey to sin and discouragement and bitterness and deception that the evil one, old devil, will try to throw in our way. Some are separated because of pride, because of hurt feelings, because of shame, and some because they think they can just do it on their own. I do not understand that, because Scripture presses back on this thinking. God says, talks about strength, that it's found in faithful, loving, transparent community. What does God want from his family? He wants us to be with one another. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, starting in verse 9, he says, two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, and woe be to him who is alone when he falls, and has not another to lift him up. Woe be unto him. I think that's a great translation to, you better not do it. You better not do it. Don't find yourself being alone in this world. We need each other. We need to recognize each other and our hurts and our celebrations to be there for us, no matter what. Paul talked to the Roman church and told us it's important to weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who do rejoice. God makes his people stronger together. The Bible message is clear here, and as God makes his people stronger together in Ecclesiastes 4, as he gives us wisdom. Galatians 6, verse 2, about bearing one of those burdens, gives us responsibility. And Hebrews 10, 24 through 25, when he gives us the practice of being together. This is what he wants. He loves us, and he wants us to be together, because alone in this world, we become isolated and hurt. That's why we're to be stronger together. Because when one person grows weary, another says, keep going, let me help you. When one falls, another one lifts him up. When someone forgets hope, another reminds him Jesus is still worth it. And ultimately, the strongest cord, going back to Ecclesiastes 4, the strongest cord is not you and me. It is Christ woven through us all.
I appreciate the thoughts that Paul shared with us this morning. Now it's time for you to share yours. Our discussion questions for this week are: why do we sometimes struggle with relationships with our brethren? What evidence do we find in the Bible that informs us that Christians are better together? And what can you do this week to lift someone up? Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks, Paul, for being on the show today. Don't fly solo. If you need encouragement, find someone that you can talk to. And if that needs to be us, reach out. I hope you have a blessed day, and I'll see you Sunday.
We're here.